I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so thrilled today to be joined by some of the wonderful cast from the Netflix series Blockbuster. We are joined today by Tyler Alvarez, Olga Merediz, and Madeleine Arthur. And Madeleine, starting with you, I wanted to ask a little bit about the way in which you've built Hannah as this character where no matter what she's talking about, she really just sees the world with this lens of optimism around her, whether she's saying, this is the first job I've ever had where no one's hissed at me or asked me to do the splits, or she's talking about her mother's passing, she still kind of always finds the optimistic element of that. And so as you would get the scripts and work with them and go through scenes, how did you always work to make sure that that was always going to be her outlook and the way that she was processing everything around her?
I mean, I guess, yeah, Hannah has a really cheery disposition. And I feel like it was always, with any character, you have to figure out what their point of view is, what her perspective is, where she's coming from. And it happened to manifest in a positive and optimistic way, which I think is a lot of her sense of humor and maybe how she hides that vulnerability. And a lot of it was in the writing and just kind of clicked to me. And I feel like that's her like quirkiness coming through.
I really love that. And Tyler, with your character, you know, he's kind of in this cross section of what he really wants to be pursuing in life with this incredible passion for filmmaking, but has so much fear of the idea of failure and also disappointing his family. And knowing that you were kind of carrying him to a place where he is going to finally try and chase his dream, whether it works or not. How did you kind of work episode by episode to build him towards a place of finding more confidence within himself to make that decision and make that action?
Well, I kind of just like tracked where he was by the end of each episode in that progression, and I'd make a little note and start the next episode from that point of view. But it's a journey, and taking a risk is really scary, but it can also be rewarding. Like I heard a quote a long time ago from this actress who said, like, to me, whether, you know, a life in pursuit of my dreams, whether it happens or it doesn't happen, is a life worthwhile. And that's something that I feel myself as a human being, and Carlos eventually gets to. It's like, whether it happens or doesn't happen, a life in pursuit of my dreams is worthwhile and is rich.
I really, really love that sentiment. And Olga, with Connie, there's that really interesting moment where we basically learn that financially, she doesn't actually need this job and she doesn't need to be there full time. But it's that sense of community and family. And, you know, when she's talking about elements where this job literally saved her in a lot of ways, I was interested in how that formed a lot of the relationship dynamics for you in terms of what it means to be around this group of people, essentially, since it's a group of people that maybe she wouldn't cross paths with in any other realm in her life.
Right, exactly. I think it gives her a sense of purpose. You know, she gets to boss people around, tell them what to do. She's like everybody's mother, and she's a little blunt, but she really, you know, she feels like she's really helping. And so I think for her, it just gives her a place to be and a place to relate, and it makes her feel like she's a part of a family and a community.
And kind of off the back of that, for all three of you, I was interested in how you formed the dynamic, because your three characters are intersecting so much in the show, you know, and off that point where I feel like Hannah and Carlos, if they met in other circumstances, would still be friends, but this group of three wouldn't necessarily exist in the way it does. And so what were some of the elements of real familiarity, real closeness, like Hannah and Connie watching judge shows in the break room and finding that connection against some of the spaces where it also kind of allowed you to play into some of the moments of comedic conflict that always end up existing so beautifully in workplace comedies?
I think that, like, human beings, naturally, we all really connect with each other. I think we all have a bunch of, you know, perceived differences, but we're all very much the same. And I think, like, that's something that we all three, you know, even all three of us, we come from such different walks of life, but we all really connected over a passion, over something that we love. And we all really want to make this show and really make this show the best thing that we can. I think that's something we connected to. And I think that's something that our characters connect to, is like, we really love Blockbuster and we really want it to survive. So I think that's why these three people can really gel, because we all have we have a common, you know, something to unify a group of people is a common goal.
Yeah, we're different generations. I felt like, you know, I feel like these I call them my puppies and my kittens, you know, and I love puppies and kittens, you know, because I'm so much older than they are, but they taught me so much. You know, I feel like I'm wise in other ways, and they are like wise in like the new, you know, the new lingo, the technology and all that. So we learned from each other. It was kind of interesting.
Feel like I really cherished when we got to be, we were in a scene together, and then when we got to play opposite each other, because the relationships really translated off screen as well, in the way that we all became friends and we clicked right away. And there's such a beauty to that when you just meet people that you immediately love, and then you get to play these characters that really care for each other and love each other as well.
Amazing. I love it. And Tyler, in talking a little bit more about Carlos and his love of cinema, you know, I love that moment where he's like, no, I'm not a Michael Bay, I'm more of a Robert Rodriguez. And you just get such an essence of his passion for cinema and what his style as a filmmaker and the types of films that he would make out in the world. And so when you first got the scripts and would see the types of cinematic references that he was making throughout the show, how did that give you such a window into this is the type of filmmaker that he would be out in the world?
Yeah, no, it really did. And also like gave me a little bit of a hint of like what his favorite movies, and like he obviously like loves horror, and that's one of his favorite genres, and like is definitely a Quentin Tarantino fan, which I 1000% am. And it's also interesting because this is my second time being a series regular with Netflix, and both characters I've played have both been filmmakers. I played Peter Maldonado on American Vandal, and he was a filmmaker, you know, documentarian. And here I am again playing a filmmaker on Blockbuster, and like an aspiring filmmaker at least. So yeah.
And Madeleine, you know, for Hannah, it's interesting because there's a point where she's made an error to do with the movie Human Centipede because she's never actually seen it, and makes the point of, I told you I wasn't very good with movies when I started the job, but there's still a lot of references that she does make to films throughout. And so where did you view her cinematic taste laying? And again, kind of how did that give you an idea into, as a character who was homeschooled, who, you know, has sometimes used this as an escapism in the world, like what did that tell you about her personality?
Totally. I mean, it definitely gives a window into her personality and into kind of what makes her tick, and what she likes and dislikes. And she loves animal movies. I feel like she loves rom-coms. So her tastes are definitely very different from Carlos's, and that definitely helped me kind of shape who she is.
And Olga, you know, it's so beautiful to watch the way that your character is so incredibly loyal and supportive of everyone around her, even to the point, you know, where she'll follow the woman that cheated with someone's husband on social media. But at the same time, it feels like she draws lines and parameters. And so I was interested in how you viewed her emotional landscape in her friendships, where she really does need that emotional connection, but sometimes kind of still puts a bit of a boundary, like only inside of work hours am I going to be this person for you.
Yes, she has her own rules and regulations, because sometimes, like you said, she goes overboard, and then sometimes it's like, no, I don't do that. So it's just depends on what's going on, and you know, that's how she is. Connie's kind of unique that way.
I love that. Well, congratulations on everything with the series, and thank you so much for talking about it. Really appreciate all of your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.